are here with Mike Barnett in our first ever road show of Real Talk, where we put the real in real estate for our MetroTex members and the community at large. Mike Barnett, thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely.
All right. So for some of our members that are going to be watching this amazing Real Talk, they might not know the news yet, Mike, because they're not here. They haven't seen all the speeches and the announcements. So what's happening here? I guess what? Are we in 30 days?
That's right.
30 days now?
That's right. Yes.
Yes. So what's your new position with Texas Realtors?
Soon to be. I'm the incoming president and CEO of Texas Realtors. The news is that Travis Kessler, our CEO for 15 years, has announced his retirement after 48 years in the organization.
You couldn't stick it out a couple more decades?
I know it. I know at least two more and make it 50. But but no. So April 1st is that transition date. Yeah.
So you heard it first. April Fool's is not happening. April 1st is when Mike is starting, and we're so incredibly excited. We've had a great partnership with you over these years, and we're just excited to be a part of this next iteration of what the landscape looks like for Texas Realtors with MetroTex, and of course, just the real estate marketplace in general. So love to just take a few minutes and maybe learn a little bit about you, because you're a man of the people. You've always been so approachable, and I appreciate that. But maybe tell us a little bit about your background, and then we'll kind of talk about maybe some priorities from a professional standpoint that you have.
Well, you say you've always had a close working relationship, and I don't know if everybody knows. I don't know if you know, 19 years ago, when I started with Texas Realtors, it was as the first field representative in North Texas. So I spent a lot of time in the old MetroTex office, attending governmental affairs meetings and just the relationship with the realtors in North Texas. It'll always be something very, 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 very special to me. That's where I learned. I cut my teeth and learned about this great organization and how you operate and what's important to you, not only from an advocacy side, from a business side as well. So MetroTex will always have a very special place in my heart. My first son was born.
Did you name him MetroTex?
His name is not MetroTex.
Oh, okay, got it.
No. But he was born shortly after I began that. So his entire life has been this realtor organization, and so it's great. But I spent about 3 years up in North Texas in that role.
Fantastic.
And then moved back down to Austin, where I took the position of director of political affairs and part of the lobby team. And so from an advocacy standpoint, that's where I really cut my teeth in this organization after spending about 10 years in the Capitol on the legislative side. So advocacy is my background. It's a passion. I've been out of it for about 12 years now, because I moved over into the administrative and management side as vice president and chief operating officer, and then executive vice president. So the moral of the story is they just keep moving me around until
Are they moving your
works.
stapler?
So that's right.
Yeah.
They don't like me to be in one seat for too long. So. But this one I think is going to stick.
I hope it sticks. No, that's absolutely amazing. I mean, we were just talking about historically, there's so many things that we don't know about our leadership, about the tenure of how the organization even came about. We have such a rich history, and I didn't know that you were in North Texas as the field rep for 3 years. So that's amazing. I think our new building is a little better, so we wished you might have had that experience there.
Absolutely.
But you're always welcome. No, that's fantastic, and I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the fact that we are in session, currently, and so your advocacy and legislative background is so imperative. We've got so many things going on, and before we dive into that, let's kind of talk about some professional priorities. Going into obviously it's been an interesting year of 2024 for real estate. Our poor new CEO Justin, I think he was on the job a week before we had the settlement announcement and industry changes and form changes and practice changes. And so it's been a lot. And so coming into 2025, you've got a lot that's going on both in the micro and the macro, but what are some initiatives that you're really focusing on?
You're exactly right. There's so much change, and this organization is over 100 years old, and to see what's happened in just the last year or two and changes that come about, I know that we won't get off of this presentation without talking about paragraph 12. This practice change.
Oh my gosh, I think people are going to get tattoos, or it's like a drinking game. Like every time you hear paragraph 12, take a shot. But yes,
but the point of that, not to get into it necessarily, the point of it is this is a big change. Our general counsel says this is the biggest change in 30 years to the practice of some of these changes that we're seeing right now. And so we understand, we completely get it. That it is a change, that it can be confusing, that education and communication on this is super, super important, not only with our members, but in communicating with TREC. And we have a very close, great relationship with TREC and have been working through this with them. It's an evolution. So by evolution, that means it may not be done changing. So as we work through this, we're all kind of learning together and leading together. And the best thing that we can do is be good communicators, be good educators on this, and have members who are engaged in keeping up, providing feedback. We appreciate the feedback very much.
I think, just want to touch on that. As going through my leadership journey on the local level too, that's one of those things where you have to be really careful, and because so many people are proud of the history that they were a part of, right? And just because the industry is evolving, that doesn't eradicate the impact that we once had in our previous roles, or 10, 20, 30 years ago, or even 5 years ago, 2 years ago, what that looked like. To sit there and say that the goalpost is consistently moving on us would, be correct. And I think I love that you made that it's evolving and it's ever evolving. And we need to know that as leaders who are here in the amazing capital of Texas right now. And of course, we've got leaders from all across the state that are here to have this type of dialogue to see what change is coming, but what can we do to be a part of that positive impact, to help our industry, to help the organization. And I think that's really important that we're sitting here, which is why you're here with us on the road. I also want to give a shout out to our amazing staff, because normally we're doing this behind the screen. And so it's this online wizard that's taking care of everything. And, you wear so many hats, and we've got Lindsay Wallace, who's actually behind here, and she looks absolutely amazing. But that is not her role. And she's chief of administration for MetroTex, but she said, you know what? Okay, that's what we need to do. And she's, trying to figure out what that is. And she's got lights and a headset and a camera. And that's just what we do in real estate, isn't it?
That's what staff does. That's what members do. That's what realtors do. We, a job that needs to be done, we
roll up our sleeves.
Roll up our sleeves and get it done.
And we
that's
figure
what
it
I love so much.
Well, and I know I've watched you do that, Mike, and so that's absolutely amazing. And I know that's going to be carried forward as the president and CEO of the organization. And so kind of cut you off there for a little bit. So we're ever evolving and doing that. And so what are some other things that as an immediate impact you're kind of focusing on within the organization?
Our focus really is communication. And I say that because of all the changes that are going on in the industry. We've always had a priority on consumer campaigns and communicating the value of realtors to consumers, people that want to buy, sell, and lease property, and the myriad of things that realtors do to make that process a reality on their behalf. But I think right now we're also at a time when it's important to talk about the value of the organization as well. So our communications that you'll continue to see and probably ramp up here very, very, very quickly will continue that consumer outreach, because that's a fundamental core purpose of the organization is to be able to spread that message to the masses. But also, it's very, very important at this time when value is being questioned or perhaps overlooked. It's important that we're here together. It's important that 100 years ago, a group of realtors got together and said, "Hey, we can do things better together." Not on our own behalf, but also on consumers' behalf as well. And that's how this thing was built, and it spread out from professional standards to education and to advocacy. And all those things are very, very important. And if you think about the impact that this organization has had, and when I say this organization, I mean at every level, the MetroTex, the other local associations, in partnership and collaboration with the state, in partnership and collaboration with NAR on the federal advocacy level as well. It's important, and I know that as technology has progressed and business models and other changes in the industry come, and choice becomes more apparent and clear to members, we may think about, hey, do I want to do this, or do I want to make sure that I maintain and be a part of this organization and continue to be a collaborative voice in moving the industry forward? We want to make sure, speaking at the state level, that every single one of our 150,000 plus members understands what you are getting from Texas Realtors, the value that you're getting, what it means to be a Texas Realtor, and have a clear message in their minds of, okay, do I want to be a member, a Realtor member, versus a real estate professional, and be able to make that choice clearly. So over the last year or so, I hope everyone has seen Business is Better as a member. So we're talking about the value and the tangible things that you get from Texas Realtors. I think you're going to see that ramp up. We started even last week with a message in our Focus newsletter that comes out every Thursday, and the title of that was Stronger Together, because that's what this message really is that we are better as an industry when we work together.
We need these overarching entities that can sit there and sometimes protect us from ourselves. And what I will say, with all of the changes and the massive disruption that's been going on, how many people actually reached out to me with my position in the organization, and knowing that I'm a practitioner as well and a brokerage owner, and saying, we're lost and we're scared.
Right.
And can you come talk to my agents? Can you come talk to this group? Can you tell us what's going on from your perspective? Because you're one of the most informed people that I know. And so I think we take that for granted, that with all of this massive change, you need the people that are willing to step up. And I say the sheepdogs of the industry, right? That are going to sit there. Sometimes we don't always get the credit for it, but you need the sheepdogs that are willing to sit there and say, I'm going to fight for the rest of us. Because that's just our personality. And I see that in you as well, Mike. And so I kind of feel like we got to act on that a little bit and show people what that value proposition is. Now, we can't stop there.
That's right.
I think when we're in the midst of chaos, that's where people see our value proposition. I don't want more chaos, but at the same time, I think things have calmed down a little bit. And so people are back to reflecting and questioning what we're providing, and scrutinizing that. And I always bring it back. I said, it's really interesting that you're getting so introspective of your organizational relationship with Metrotex or Texas Realtors or NAR. I said, it's the same thing that the consumer's doing with you as the Realtor.
That's right.
What's your value proposition? What are you offering? And it doesn't mean it's not there. It's just sometimes we're undercover.
That's right.
So behind the scenes, we're doing so much work for the consumers and our clients, and we forget to kind of talk about it.
That's right.
And I think we've gotten away from that and now have become very hyper-focused on it. The communication level of, we've always been advocating for you behind the scenes. It's just we probably haven't done a great job talking about it.
That's right.
And now we have to talk, and do a better job, which is why doing things like this, because not everybody's going to come to the conference.
Right.
Nor should these be a really full hotel of a lot of real estate crazies. But that's what this is important is to disseminate information to our members where they are. And this has been such a huge approachable format. And so you being able to sit down here in the midst of everything that's going on and open up to us. And no, we did not give you a list of questions, to answer ahead of time. It was just more, let's have this dialogue. And you guys are so open to that. And two things I always say can be true at the same time. We can still be critical of certain things, but we can also be supportive and know that the organization needs to be here. Because I can tell you right now, without Metrotex or Texas Realtors, I would be very nervous as a business owner, as a second-generation realtor, building a business both in the residential and multifamily property management space. Like, I need my organization pounding the pavement, especially. We're in session right now at the state level, and advocacy is your background, and that's huge. I mean, we're going to have an imprint this year, aren't we?
We are, absolutely, and that connection is so important. And we are a member-centric organization. We are a member-driven organization. That's what we're doing in Austin right now at the winter meeting is having these conversations, getting that input, getting that feedback, and we're member-centric. But I don't want to let this conversation go without talking about how much we value the relationship with our local associations as well. I say our local associations. We're all together. It's a collaboration, because you're besides the work that you do directly in service provision, you're also a great conduit between the members of your association and Texas Realtors. And you mentioned kind of the ivory tower. That's exactly is a priority of mine, is that we don't have that. And obviously we're 200 miles from the Metroplex, and I'm so thankful for opportunities like this to be able to be on video and sit down and have this conversation in a way that will communicate with members back home. We're going to start here pretty soon our tour of the state. We have what we call our Texas Realtors 360 regional meetings, and we'll be up in the Metroplex here in a month or so. Those start next month, and that's part of the outreach and meeting members where they are, hearing from folks that don't have the opportunity to come down here to Austin. But you're exactly right. We're here. Winter meeting is not coincidentally happen while the legislature is in session every other year. It's by design, and that's because I think it's also important to make sure that everyone kind of understands how these policies are created, what that process is. It's not just, a bunch of lobbyists sitting in a dark room with cigars saying, hey, this is what we want to go.
It's not?
No.
Okay, got it.
No. But, and putting those together, it's a year-long process.
Absolutely it
of
is.
members coming together, talking about issues that impact or could impact real estate, and directing us on what we should be across the street. I say across the street, the Texas Realtors building is directly across the street on purpose from the state capitol, just a few steps. You'll get to see it if you come to Austin on March 26th for Texas Realtors Day at the Capitol.
Good plug there, Mike.
That's right. We'll talk about it. I'll make sure I get that plug in a couple times because it's important and impactful. Members come together, talk about these issues for a year, direct us on what positions the organization should take. We bring it to the executive board and the board of directors, again, member bodies that say, yep, y'all got it right. Now go execute on those things. And that's the stage that we're in right now. And about a month into the legislative session already, so important to be able to have a little bit of that context of what's happening, how these issues are starting to be received, what the governor has laid out as the priorities, and that happened exactly 7 days ago, which directly impact the things and align, fortunately, with the things that we're pushing for. Affordability housing affordability is a huge part of that. The governor said that he wants $10 billion in property tax cuts. Maybe maintain some of the property tax cuts that came into place on a temporary basis in the last legislative session. The lieutenant governor, a big priority of his is to increase the homestead exemption up to $140,000. So these are things that align with policy statements that we already had. So it's good that state leadership sees that the priority of housing affordability in an area where I think a lot of folks contend that affordability is becoming a big problem. Affordability is much more than property taxes and homestead exemptions. It's more around the total cost of home. Insurance is something that we're looking at very, very, very closely. It's becoming a real problem. When you get to a point to where taxes and insurance and other cost of living things are more than your mortgage,
there's a problem.
It's something that needs to be looked at, absolutely. And we are. 1,300 people a day move to the state of Texas.
We feel it on the streets, by the way.
You feel it on the streets. It's an inventory issue. It's an affordability issue. These people have to be able to live somewhere. Our workforce has to have affordable places to live. It's more than that, but it's also the infrastructure to support 1,300 people a day. We're fortunate to live in a state that has such a positive business climate. That's what's bringing companies here. That's what's bringing all these workers here, all these folks here to work in these businesses and moving to Texas. But if we don't have the water to support, the water is a huge priority for the state leaders and Texas Realtors as well as part of that infrastructure. There's a plan towards coming up with a longer term funding mechanism to support water development, and for the first time, or I feel like it's the first time, actually putting creative proposals on the table about not only fixing our leaking infrastructure, but also new creative ideas of desalination, things like that. Transporting water from, I know that's a controversial issue of transporting water from where there is water to places that there isn't water, but that's part of supporting the infrastructure of the state, making sure that we have reliable electricity. I've heard that we have to double our electric capacity within the next 10 or 20 years to be able to keep up with the infrastructure needs of that. Roads, living in the Metroplex and living in Austin, I don't think I need to.
No, we don't need to discuss that any further.
Go on about that, but these are all things that, while they don't necessarily, when you think about what should Texas Realtors be lobbying for every day, these aren't things that necessarily impact the day-to-day business practices of realtors, but absolutely impact the ability of Texans to buy, sell, and lease real estate.
Well, and touching on that, that's what people don't understand that we're doing and we're talking about, and those conversations when we're doing our check-ins and we're having those conversations, what's going on in your backyard, what do we need to be, privy to? And it's not just happening right before, we're in session or anything else like that. And those are the parts where, it's not sexy. It might not be in the micro income producing on a daily basis for our realtors and our members to know that, but it's vital and it's prudent, because if we're not working on that in the background, then we've always saw 2024 was a really difficult year. And that was just because of those outside influences of inflation and interest rates and those things that we don't actually have a lot of control over kind of moving the needle on. But if we don't have these conversations around appropriate infrastructure and utilities and all of those things, then those are things that we can have a positive impact on doing. Then it's not just about having a softer year because of things that are out of control. Those are things that are going to happen to us. And I'm a big proponent of, I want to be a part of architecting the change that impacts my personal and professional life. And I think that's why, whether you call me a sucker or just a servant leader, either one at any given day, right? That's what I want to do, because I want to know if there's conversations that are being had around my business, my ability to perform, my ability to serve my clients, the ability to put food on my table for my family. I need to know that there's an organization much bigger than myself that is loud and is proud and is having these conversations with our elected officials. And Mike, you guys are doing that. That
you have the opportunity to have input on as well. And that's what's important as well. And I also want to make sure that we don't leave the viewers with the impression that we're not into things that actually directly input the practice, and things like deed fraud and squatters and the foreign buyers legislation that's out there as well. And so we could go through them all right now. That would be great. But I can also tell people, if you go to TexasRealEstate.com and you go into our governmental affairs tab, you can see our 43-page book of priorities for the session. There's a lot of stuff going on in real estate that impacts our industry and profession, and that's a good outline of all the things that people like you and others that serve on these groups have put together in directing us what to do.
Well, and I know just from our side, and something we've been talking about, again, I mentioned second generation, but when I got into the business and I watched my mom get into the business, there was much more of a feedback loop of our brokerages telling our agents, and impacting as far as being a part of the organization. And I think obviously with business models changing and different things in our industry, which is not a bad thing, right? I mean, that's capitalism at its finest, and it's the entrepreneurial spirit, which we all are. But ultimately, those are the things that we have to recognize, is that our brokers were an amazing, boots on the ground for us and everything else. And now we don't even have traditional brick and mortar opportunities to do that. And so it's so much more imperative to continue to do more of these type of things, because we can't rely on our offices and our brokerages to be the ones to help us do that. But I know how important it is. And I really appreciate what you guys are doing and evolving in that messaging going across. What is something, this is something that we talk about a lot. What is something from, if it's a brand new agent coming in, what would you instruct them to do? Because they don't need to go headfirst into a leadership journey and do all these other things.
Right.
But what is so important that could also turn into being one of the best advocates for the consumer? What are some resources? What are some things that they can do to understand what being a a realtor actually does for their business and helps them continue to grow and advocate for that?
That's exactly right. And the very first commitment that you have to make is a commitment to learn.
Yeah.
Understand what services and resources and tools are available to you from the associations at every level, that can help you make you a better professional.
Sure.
So dig in. Give us a call. Give Metro Tex a call. Talk to somebody who has been engaged in the association to understand how, from a tangible level, day-to-day practice level, you can benefit from your membership. You're not in this thing alone, and whether it's with a broker relationship or whether you rely on and look to your associations to provide these types of tools to you, they are there.
Yeah.
They are absolutely there. And if you can't find them, then we're not doing a good enough job of communicating those to you. And that's what's important to me is this communication aspect. I say all the time, we could be doing all the greatest things in the entire world, but if we're not communicating, then we're not doing them. And that's so important to me and has been important to the association. But I feel like it's time to really double down on those efforts, is really being good communicators, helping everyone understand what is available to you in terms of resources, but also that we need you. We are better together. We are stronger together, as I said earlier. This is how this organization was formed. Again, realtors coming together, say, how can we do better? And we've built from that over 105 years now at Texas Realtors. And that commitment to engaging members, and engagement looks much differently. Do you consider that you don't engage unless you come down to Austin and come to winter meeting? No, absolutely. Engagement is at every single level. Writing us an email and saying, hey, I agree with you on this issue, or I disagree with you on this issue, telling us why, that is engagement as well. We take.
I've been on the receiving end of that engagement, by the way.
Of course, absolutely. And it's, if it's done, professionally and
sure, absolutely, we welcome it. Yeah.
So some communications are more productive than other, but they are all absolutely considered. And so, my point here is that you don't have to, on your first day, decide you're going to be chairman of the board. And that can absolutely be your engagement path, but there are little steps along the way. We have and I would start with, at some point, whether it's in your first year or not in your first year, join a committee. You learn so much. Not only do you learn so much about how the organization operates, and you have direct input on whatever that jurisdiction of that particular committee is, you learn a lot of people that are in the industry as well. You learn from folks that have been there for a long time and can help you navigate the right path for you through not only your real estate career, but your engagement with the association. Sure. You can get whatever you want out of your engagement with the association, and that doesn't mean that your only reason to engage from day one is to get into your position with the association.
I know. Yeah. Again, not everybody has to be like the rest of us, and that's okay. And I think we have to normalize what that looks like, because I do think there's this stereotypical what a volunteer leader looks like within the organization, and somebody that wants to lead, in that capacity in their community, whatever that looks like. They could just be somebody that's a mouthpiece and a disseminator of information. Hey, I watched this podcast, or I watched, Mike Barnett talk about this, and I want to talk about what's going on in the current legislative session. Just bringing that information to their local boots on the ground and doing that kind of stuff. And I think that's what the amazing part is normalizing that not everybody's journey of impact and involvement is going to look the same. So
and also, you're exactly right there. And what does an ideal engagement look like? An ideal engagement is watching this podcast or reading something in the Focus, and then spreading that to people within your sphere of influence or your office or whatever that probably didn't read it or watch it, and share that information. Because again, our goal is to provide tools and resources to everybody, not just those that come to us. We want that to get out. And so I think you'll see some efforts on our part to to try to broaden our communication efforts in other more creative ways than we have.
But I will also tell you, just from the business building side of it, and I think I touch on this a lot with my journey at MetroTex, is yes, it is a time investment and time is money, and I understand that. But I will tell you this, I've actually expanded my business operations and my offering. We opened up a property and asset management business nearly 2 years ago. I would not have been able to do that if I did not have those amazing people, not only locally, but throughout the state and nationally, to be able to sit there and mentor myself and mentor my husband, who runs that portion of our business, and to know that we have those resources, and more importantly, that we know what's going on at the state level to help impact on the leasing and property management space. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of things that go on between, HOAs and different things like that. We're still seeing that. And we've been so heavily involved, on the state level, Texas Realtors, on the advocacy portion of that. And we're not done there, right? I mean, that's, again, if we're going back to, the governor's priorities from the standpoint of creating and providing affordable quality housing, that goes to the rental space as well, and a big impact. And those are things that we're talking about still, is what that looks like from an affordability factor, that we do need quality owners and investors to be able to invest in that type of infrastructure. And so I know there's a lot of things that we're constantly discussing around leasing and property management. And yes, we have been called maybe the squeaky wheel portion of the membership from time to time, but it's also because our impacts are on a daily basis. I mean, when you're talking about sales and everything else, that's a longer runway of relationships, but on a daily basis, we are feeling the pain of what's going on that portion of the industry, especially coming out of COVID. But those are all things that I would not be privy to, because I wouldn't have actively sought out that information on my own. But being able to come to a place like this, go back to my husband, who serves as local NARPM president for Dallas. I want to give a shout out to Amy Hansen, who's our national president for NARPM, and she's in our backyard too, and has taken my husband under, her wing. That would have never happened without this involvement. And she's been so instrumental in helping me grow my business. But because she sees what we're doing, and we're doing it the right way because we're here, or we're in these different rooms, that people are willing to invest. And when I go back home and I talk to my clients, my investors, or anybody else, and I say, hey, this is what's coming around the pike, these are the conversations that we're having. And so, hey, maybe we need to hit pause for a couple of months before we actually transact or do something else. And
that's where where the rubber meets the road, really, is when you can take back information and it actually helps inform your clients and customers on decisions that they're making in real estate. And you make a really good point by bringing up property managers, because the point being, there's a community for everybody. Whatever your passion or practice is, whether it's property management, whether it's commercial, whether it's global, there's a place for you here, and if you can't find it, please let me know, and we'll direct you to it, because that's important. Is that I cannot tell you. We could spend the rest of the day talking about stories where people get involved, and it led to this huge referral network.
Yes,
so
it is.
we're talking about dollars and cents.
Yes.
Just by getting involved in creating relationships. And things like when we're talking about advocacy, and we've talked about it kind of being Austin-centered, but it goes back the other way as well in creating advocates and grassroots leaders. I'll beat your press release to it, but we just awarded the Grassroots Advocate of the Year to Jeff Farnell, MetroTex member. So because of the great efforts that members back home do in being advocates and creating relationships with their legislators, their city council people, their Congress people as well. That's what makes this organization successful. It's not how good our lobby team is. And I'll tell you, I mentioned the Realtor Day at the Capitol just a minute ago, and I've been on both sides of this before, from working in the Capitol for 10 years in the legislative offices. I'll tell you, I knew who the realtors were, and I knew what day they were going to be at the Capitol. And that's when you make sure that you tell everybody who's thinking about coming to the Capitol that day, you don't want to be here that day. First, we're occupied with our realtor friends, but you won't be able to catch an elevator or anything else. But at the same time, being on this side of it, our lobbyists are in the Capitol all 140 days of the legislative session, and most of the days that we're not in legislative session, and doing good work from morning till late at night. But no one day is more impactful than when 3,000 realtors come, storm the Capitol, hold a rally on the front steps, and go in and talk to the legislators about what the priorities are, because it's not coming from an Austin lobbyist. It's coming from someone back home that you work with that took a day off of going out and potentially making money and putting food on their table to come talk to them about this. We have seen impactful legislation be stuck in committee before. Realtor Day happens, 3,000 realtors storm the Capitol, and it gets passed out of committee the next day. That is a real story.
That's amazing.
That has happened, and it's the impact that this collaboration between our organizations and the members that support us and get involved at those levels. Realtor Day at the Capitol is for anyone. If you're saying to yourself, "Hey, I'm not that up on politics. I don't know these issues all that well," that's not the point. We have spokespersons in each one of those meetings. It's about numbers. It's about showing that these are things that members back home, real estate professionals back home, care about enough to come and communicate with them. I can't overemphasize the impact that day has. March 26th.
March 26th. No, and it is. And I think that's what we need to keep on directing our communication back to is those anecdotal stories. It's the same thing of how I get more business, right? If I just sit there and say just listed, just sold, or anything else, there's no story behind that. How did I sell that house? What did I do to market that house differently than the 5 others that haven't sold? What did I do to help that family that actually was in peril behind the scenes? And I helped navigate all of those things. And so we keep on telling, the practitioners, provide more value, talk about anecdotal evidence, talk about those stories of how you did what you did. And I know that's what you guys are doing and continuing to do and raising that bar of communication. Mike, does that mean we might get a TikTok channel, or you might be, you're new? I mean, that's a different.
You're looking at this color in my hair. If it's coming across, the TikTok thing might be new to me, but all that being said, is that communication is absolutely imperative.
Yes, it is.
And I recognize it, and Texas Realtors does have that.
Okay.
But I also recognize that no two people consume information the same way.
Sure.
People have preferences, and we can't rely on the old school of, well, we sent you an email.
Oh gosh,
so
no.
Didn't you read the long email?
Right. What is it? RDR? Realtors don't read, right?
Right.
Yeah, I know.
So no, obviously, new media is something that our teams are on top of, and understanding that's the way we communicate in modern times, and I hope that they'll let me be on some of those.
I think you would do great. And I think that's the whole point, Mike, is that, again, you're sitting here and there's a bajillion things that I know you can be doing right now and getting prepared for. But you're here because it's important to spread that awareness and to have those, open dialogues, not only with the leadership locally, but the messaging to other Texas Realtors, to be sit there and have that. And so, we'll sit here and wrap this up here in a second, because I know you have some things. I need to go get ready for pickleball. Hopefully when this airs, I will have another trophy to go with my first trophy last year. But
I didn't mention that engagement can also be fun.
It can be fun. We'll see. I've only been prepping for this for an entire year now. But no, what do you, as we leave our viewers, and this is a great tool that we'll continue to utilize, and of course once we maybe 30 days from now have more updates of what's going on from the legislative side. What do you want to leave, our members with to have that conversation? We're super excited that April 1st is coming around the corner, and what can we expect? Sure. And, and how can people continue to make an impact?
Right, absolutely. It's just about connection.
Okay.
It absolutely is. That's our commitment to members. I hope that, and I would encourage members who maybe haven't been connected with their local association or the state association, get there.
Sure.
There are low impact ways to get connected, and that's our commitment and encouragement. Because again, we rely on members to make this organization great. The partnership between the local and the state association, but also the members directly. And,
Sure.
and we are a member-driven, member-centric organization. I hope that if you don't feel that way, let me know, because that's our goal.
No, and I truly know that is, Mike, and you and I have had, plenty of conversations, and when I knew you got the job, and I texted you, congratulations. I mean, your response was, now let's get to work,
There you go.
And that's what's exciting. So it's time to get to work. It's time to get to the pickleball court, and see what that looks like. But Mike, again, thank you for joining us today. Super excited to see with you at the leadership. And of course, again, we want to talk about how impactful Travis has been with nearly 5 decades in the Realtor organization. And he has definitely teed you up for success, and Texas Realtors up for success. But, congratulations, buddy. I'm really excited to serve with you and see what you do.
Thank you. I appreciate
Yeah.
it. And thanks for having me on today, too.
All right. We'll see
Awesome.
you soon.